G.I. Joe has a few Arctic specialists on the team, and now, here at the start of February 2021, it's time to talk about another one. Today is all about Iceberg. Let's talk about him. First, thanks for watching JLS Comics. If you do like the video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. I upload videos just like this every single week. Alright, let's jump into our story. Clifton Nash was born in Brownsville, Texas, and Brownsville sits on the southern border of Texas as one of the southernmost towns, right on the Rio Grande, right across from its sister city in Mexico called Matamoros. Due to its location, the summers are sizzling hot. Well, according to Iceberg's file card, he hates hot weather. Iceberg's Action Force intelligence profile fleshes out his story a bit more than the US version. So while other kids saved their money to buy things like bicycles, Iceberg worked in a frozen meatpacking plant to earn and save money to buy an air conditioning unit. As soon as he was able, Clifton enlisted in the United States Army. After completing basic at Fort Leonard Wood, he requested to be stationed in Alaska, where he was assigned to the 172nd Infantry Brigade, and here he came into his own as a cold weather specialist. In fact, he was so at home in the cold weather environment that Clifton became a cold weather survival instructor. He also joined the U.S. Army Rangers as an Arctic warfare specialist. And in a troop and resource sharing program, Iceberg temporarily joined British Special Boat Service as an Alpine trooper, and then, after embedding with Eskimos, was assigned to Action Forces Arctic and Mountain Cadre, where he was deployed on anti-terrorism ops in polar regions. Why there? Well, Iceberg thrives in both dry and wet cold weather. He has the Mountain Warfare and Cold Weather Manual memorized, and likely even wrote some of the book. He can work in a surprisingly large amount of the planet, as about a quarter of Earth's landmass may be termed as severely cold. He breaks them up into Arctic, subarctic, temperate, and mountain regions, and then maritime and continental zones depending on bodies of water in the area. And he can create various types of shelters, rafts, trenches. He knows how to purify water, what to find to make a fire. He knows how to find food and how to read the weather. And he is also very proficient in offensive and defensive maneuvers and tactics relating to mountainous and snowy terrains. And this is just what the G.I. Joe team was looking for as they sought to expand and to continue looking for additional specialists to bolster their cold weather troops. So Clifton came on their radar from his Ranger and Action Force work, and so he was recruited to G.I. Joe, where he took on the codename Iceberg. According to his second file card, Iceberg loves to thrash cobra at the mountain slopes on his jet-powered snowboard, and he knows everything about Arctic survival, including fortifying his own igloo by hacking and shaping huge blocks of ice with his razor-edged machete. Iceberg first appeared in Marvel Comics in Larry Hama's issue 68 of G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero. The issue opened up in the midst of a fight as the G.I. Joe team and Wild Bill C-130 opposed the Baroness and a column of his tanks under her command that were chasing them down the runway at Frusenland International Airport. At the edge of the runway, they managed to get some equipment out the back of the plane. Iceberg was with Hawk in an Striker, while Backstop and Covergirl drove a Persuader, and Duke and Frostbite covered the right flank with their Snowcat. Cobra had installed terrordromes in the country, which were equipped with fear-inducing low-frequency radio waves, tech they gained from the mercenary Quinn, who himself stole it from a Russian research outpost in the Arctic back in issue 2, and which Dr. Venom ended up retrofitting to the terrordromes. The Joes were there as a special security team to support a special research team that ended up being Battle Force 2000, who were covertly investigating the terrordrome operation. As Iceberg and the team rode out into the frozen tundra, the fear waves began to affect them, and this was happening just as the Baroness lined up a column of maggot tanks to fire a barrage on their exposed position. But the barrage fell short, split the ice shelf, and weakened it to the point where Cobra was forced to pursue the Joes with wolves. Baroness shot up the Striker that Iceberg was on with 20mm gunfire, so they quickly jumped on the back of the Snowcat, with Iceberg remembering to grab the Law. A Snow Viper and a wolf swung around and was going to hit the Snowcat from the rear, a point of weakness in its armor, but Iceberg stuck the Law in his face, and well, that Viper was gone. Baroness then ordered a ski missile attack, and the Vipers fired over a dozen missiles at the two vehicles, and in a Deus Ex Machina moment, Battle Force 2000 showed up to save the day, with the entire salvo of missiles, Iceberg notes, being strafed into oblivion. They were saved by the team that they were sent in to protect. Iceberg showed up again in issue 72, the issue where Wildcard, Skid Market, and Windmill debuted, writing in a new Desert Fox and a new Mean Dog. Spirit led the newbies down into the deep underground military base, the Pit, for in-processing, and it was Iceberg who was to give them a tour and process them in. As he was doing this, a Star Viper stole a black box from the Pit, which led right into Civil War. Iceberg during this time also participated in a few special missions. It was a major part of the European mission as well. In Special Mission 14 and 15, Iceberg was with Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Chuckles, and a CIA case officer named Anderson, who were all flying an old Dakota above a rugged pass in the Himalayas as they were bracketed with anti-aircraft fire from a Chinese artillery battery. Now smoking and on fire, they managed to make it to the legendary Valley of Eternal Mist. They crashed the plane down, and it came to a stop, resting precariously on the edge of a snowy plateau. They were there to track down a former CIA agent named Colin Esterhazy, who had gone dark 20 years previous and was now called the White Devil from Virginia. They were greeted by a portly monk as they met up with Colin and his horseback riding freedom fighters. Colin gave the horses to them to take the fight to the enemy. Iceberg said none of his training prepared him for a horse-mounted cavalry charge. When it turned out that Anderson's mission was an illegal op, they decided to help Colin free a nearby monastery from Chinese occupation. And to do so, Iceberg and Snake Eyes scaled a cliff 500 feet straight up. He's not Alpine, but it was nothing that he couldn't handle, and he couldn't wait to tell Alpine about what he did when he got back to base. They had to work together to rescue the abbot, get an escape vehicle, take out the occupiers, and as Iceberg was tasked, get the front gate open. As a big change of scenery from the typical frigid terrain he's in, Iceberg later joined Chuckles, Snake Eyes, and Scarlet in a riverboat as they traveled 900 miles on the Mekong River as they sought to find a new extraction site that wasn't compromised. They tangled with Big Tep's river pirates, where Iceberg blew up one of the boats with a perfectly thrown grenade. It turns out that the locals they rescued from the pirates owned a farmhouse that was the same farmhouse that was picked for their targeted extraction site. One pirate escaped and reported back to Voltar, who just happened to be posted up nearby with his Iron Grenadiers and a company of demon tanks. And he was there because Big Tep had promised Destro that he'd overthrow the government run by General Lom. And it turns out that the October Guard were also there, but they were there to defend General Lom from Voltar and Big Tep. And back at the farmhouse, it was chow time, but Iceberg shot off a message with their SATCOM first before he missed the sunset time deadline. He was still kitted out in all white and green, however, he now went sleeveless. Then there was a big old fight in a rainstorm that night before the Tomahawk flew in to extract Iceberg and the team the next morning, finally. The Tomahawk that came in from the US's flag in the Gulf of Thailand, who had to run through SAM's AAA fire October Guard attack helicopters to finally link up with Iceberg and the ground team. In European Mission 8, Iceberg was with Frostbite at Apogee Base in Greenland, a guy named Professor Alec Gilmore, who led armament research for Mars Industries, who happened to be in a plane crash as he was transporting something called Project Omega, which was a stealth cruise missile. At the base, Iceberg picked up Flint just as a bunch of Cobra Fangs attacked. And Destro stole a snowcat from the base to go to the plane wreck, so Flint and Iceberg chased him in their own snowcat. He got caught up in a whiteout condition blizzard, and Flint said, "Hey Iceberg, head back to base," but he said, "I love it out here in these conditions." Much later, Iceberg had another appearance in ARAH with issue 167, which was his debut in the new Hamaron on the title, now published by IDW instead of Marvel. In this issue, Iceberg was again on a mission relating to that Fearwave Russian station from issue 2. Their mission now was to access the weaponizing aspects of the base so that the Joe's intel apparatus could evaluate low-frequency projects currently active in rogue states around the globe. Iceberg was somewhere on the North Polar ice cap, as the panel indicates, with Frostbite and Cold Front in an avalanche, while Blizzard was off-panel on their flank in a snowcat. In the snowstorm, they found the old metal Quonset huts, which they found devoid of personnel. And as they did so, the hut was surrounded by Cobra snow serpents, ice vipers, and others like techno vipers and televipers in their squadron of Cobra wolves. Cold Front tried to bring the avalanche around to the rear of the hut to pick them up, while Frostbite and Iceberg made it right out the back door as they fired into the line of attacking Vipers. And they took out a few, but they ran out of ammo. And that's when the Vipers overran their position and beat the crap out of them with their longs and tied them to the back of the wolves to drag them away. Luckily, as Iceberg points out, Blizzard was still out there with his skis, biding his time, waiting for the right moment to attack. And at that right moment, Blizzard skied in, cut their tether, and tossed Iceberg his big serrated knife. And they managed to take over a Cobra Wolf, with Iceberg taking the rear weapon station called the High-Vis Rear Gunner Seat on the toy's original blueprints. From there, Iceberg was able to get Duke on the comms to request a pulse beam burst from Joe Colton's space laser, just as Cobra's Antonov plane, the one that was to get them out of the area, landed. And success! The laser took out all the Vipers, and then Iceberg and Frostbite took the Antonov plane over and forced the pilots to land at an American base called Thule in Greenland, America's northernmost and really most remote outpost. It's the base where the expedition to Camp Sentry began for the Cold War's top-secret Project Iceworm. Anyway, a fully armed security team met the massive Russian plane as they came to a stop and the ramp was lowered, and beaten, bruised, and battle-weary, Iceberg met the security chief and told him he had been in command as he handed him a card with a phone number on it that contained a direct line to the White House. And so he's still deployed on off-the-books, off-panel missions where his specialties are maximized. But they haven't been declassified yet, so we can't talk about them. On the animated side, Iceberg appeared in a few episodes of Sunbow's G.I. Joe animated series, where he was voiced by Arthur Burkhart, the same actor who voiced Destro in Stalker, Transformers Devastator, General Spidrax from Sectors, and countless other characters for games and franchises over the years, from Star Wars to Spider-Man to Predator, World of Warcraft, and even God of War's Thanatos. Iceberg did show up in Season 2, starting with every part of Arise Serpentor Arise, although he said very little. In Computer Complications, Iceberg was with Lowlight in a guard tower where he's sweating profusely and complaining, "I can't wait to get back to Antarctica," he told Lowlight, while Lowlight repelled Xandar from infiltrating the base. At the end of $1 Million Medic, while Cobra attacked the cabin that Lifeline and Bree Van Mark were in, Iceberg and Lift Ticket showed up, and Iceberg fired his laser right into the mountainside, which caused an avalanche, ultimately saving them. His starring role came in an episode called Iceberg Goes South. Iceberg was in the Arctic on a 4-month mission testing survival gear when he saw a lady shoot a seal with a tranquilizer from a helicopter. And it turns out that she'd come all the way up from Jamaica to do that, and to see him, partly. It just so happens that her uncle was running a tropidome nearby, doing bioweapons research. She ended up bringing him by helicopter to the Arctic Environment Research Base 20 minutes away. And then she went back to the tropidome, but happened to drop a sample that Iceberg picked up. And when she got to the tropidome, she was attacked by her uncle, Dr. Wendigo's werewolf, as he was being controlled by none other than Dr. Mindbender. So Iceberg took a snowmobile to the tropidome, wanting to bring her the sample back, but he wasn't let in. So he set up a campfire and waited nearby, reading a Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire history, little light reading before bed. But he was captured, and Snowjob was captured too, and both Snowjob and Mahia were forced to look on as Iceberg was transformed into a killer whale. As a killer whale, Iceberg attacked Wetsuit, but Lowlight shot him with a trank, and Mahia put some raw meat in his mouth, which was how he was able to change back to his human form. In Secondhand Emotions, we get a rare appearance of the White Iceberg. Someone miscolored the cells. Whoops. At the start of the episode, Lifeline took some of his battle buddies to the church where his sister was about to get married, and Iceberg was among them. Working with Serpentor, Dr. Mindbender had Zartan and the Dreadnoks implant the Joes with mood-altering implants so he could alter their emotions with harmonics, sound waves. Back at the base, Irana and some bats attacked, and Iceberg was trapped under a jeep, but Sci-Fi later helped him out, and Lifeline treated the wounds. They then attacked the Cobra base, and Iceberg attacked on his skis. Iceberg was also very briefly in G.I. Joe the movie, where he was seen fighting a few times, but said very little. Iceberg's first action figure debuted in 1986, where he got the one white rifle as an accessory. And I wish it'd come with skis like Snowjob did. This version of Iceberg was later available in a mail-in offer called Terror on the Tundra. And in the story on the offer, Hawk had ordered Iceberg to stage a flanking maneuver against a Cobra Ninja Viper and a Hiss tank to divert them from the team's main strike. And here, Iceberg cost $3.75 plus 1 flag point. This was in 1991 to $1993. Speaking of 1993, I got my accessory wish as Iceberg's V2 figure was released that year, where he was now part of Battle Corps. And he got a big redesign. Now he had a nice frost-free face mask, a big patterned parka that had a fur lining, a giant spring-loaded missile launcher, a jet-powered snowboard, a gun, and a machete. His face mask here is yellow, while the card art depicts a green face mask. In 1997, Iceberg was carded in a 3-pack along with Blizzard and Snowjob for a Toys R Us exclusive set called Arctic Mission Team. And I'll leave you with a couple quotes from Iceberg. "I like my food like I like my enemies. Frozen." And this one's good too. "Just give me an M16 and an icicle and I'll fight till I freeze." And with that, that's a wrap on this one, my friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and you'll be one of the first to know when I upload videos just like this each and every week. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.